The 5 reasons why men should never use online dating apps. There are far, far better alternatives.
Many men on the internet are starting to spread the idea that dating apps are a complete and utter waste of time for men.
A lot of men are starting to realize that dating apps are a big waste of time and energy as of late. And who could blame them? It's a total cesspool. Today's topic is about why dating apps are a complete waste of time.
And that men should never use online dating apps. Okay, just kidding, I'm not actually British. The YouTuber Wheat Waffles said, men should never use online dating. As they say, dating apps are a man's waste of time and a woman's ego boost. Okay, I'm seriously stopping now. It is true that dating apps are a woman's ego boost. If you've seen any Tinder experiments comparing an attractive woman to a man, the results that they get on Tinder, you'll see that women just blow men out of the water with how many results they get. They get thousands of matches.
The male model got 112 likes in 24 hours. Pretty good. Let's compare it to the not so attractive girl. She got 474 likes in the same time span.
Nero Angelo, another Black Pill YouTuber, says dating apps are a complete waste of time. Black Pill YouTuber Night Shift says ugly men shouldn't use dating apps. In this video, we're going to actually look at, are dating apps really that bad? And it's important that we're going to compare dating apps to the other methods that men can use. Because, to be honest, in 2023, dating as a whole is pretty trash for men in general. But relative to the other methods that men can use, are dating apps actually that bad in comparison? This is Turbo Black Pill. Well, methods that men can use to approach women. Of course, we have the warm approach, which is when you're approaching a woman who you already know, and at the very least, you know each other's names, and you go to like the same school or you work for the same company. It's a warm environment where people already know each other. She's in your social circle. Next, we have the cool approach. The cool approach, she's not in your social circle yet, and you might not even know each other's names at all. But she is in the same university or in the same job that you work at. It's kind of an in-between between warm approach and cold approach. So with cold approach, of course, we have the in-person pickup artist style cold approaching. You have night game, where you're approaching women at bars and clubs. And you have day game, where you're doing this PUA style, just approaching women on the street type of thing. And then we have online, which I'm classifying as a subset of cold approach. It's like virtual cold approaching because you don't know the woman, you're approaching complete strangers. And yeah, you have apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, and you have sites like OkCupid and Plenty of Fish. These are the methods that you can use, and there are pros and cons to each of them, and I think the best method for each man differs based on his goals, his attractiveness level, and his social skills. I'd say generally the rule goes as follows. So we're going to draw like a chart, and on here we're going to put what a man is looking for. Is he looking for a long-term relationship, like a girlfriend or like a wife? Or is he seeking a short-term encounter in the bedroom? And we're going to classify based on looks. So we have sub 5. And yeah, this might surprise you, but I think for actually both of these goals, if you're a sub 5, meaning that you're like a below average, rather unattractive man, then online is going to be your best option. I think for normies, if you're seeking long-term relationship, a warm approach will be the best option. And for short-term, it really depends. And for Chad, like the most attractive man, I would say it depends, but it also doesn't really matter because Chad would have an abundance no matter what method he uses. So yeah, he would have more women than he needs. So it really depends on whichever one he personally prefers. In the Black Pill community, I think the most common demographic of man is the sub 5 who's seeking a long-term relationship. For the sub 5 seeking long-term relationship, I would rank the approach methods from best to worst as follows. So number 1, dating apps. And I'm going to explain why in the rest of this video. 2, warm approach. 3, cool approach. And 4 and 5 are both bad, but I would say day game is worse than night game if you're sub 5. So yes, I am saying that dating apps are your best option if you're sub 5, long and short term. And these reasons that I'm going to explain also apply to normies and chads, but just to a lesser degree. It depends really on your priorities. There are no hard and fast rules. So in this video, I'm just explaining my opinion on why dating apps are the best option overall if you're a sub 5. But that doesn't mean that depending on your circumstances, maybe warm approach or even cold approach may be better for you. I don't think cold approach would be better for you, but really it's up to you to make your own decision on which method is the best for you. Not every sub 5 male should be using dating apps, just like not every normie or not every chad should be using dating apps. It all depends on the situation. But you might want to take into consideration these 10 reasons I'm about to present. And before we get into the reasons, we first need to look at the major drawbacks of the warm approach, because the 10 reasons I'm going to be explaining later all will build upon this information. First drawback of the warm approach, reputation damage from running the numbers game. So the numbers game is basically the theory that if you ask out a whole lot of women, at least one of them will say yes. And that's when assuming that most women don't find you attractive. So you'll have to ask out many women in order to just score once. Example, if just 2% of women find you attractive enough to date, on average, you would get 1 date per every 50 attempts. So really, you would just have to be running the numbers game. Now, here's the problem with the numbers game. That if you, for example, shoot your shot with 30 girls at your school or workplace, the word would spread around and you would be known for being the creep who asks out every girl.
Because the thing with strike 2, this is the point where people start to assume that you're a little desperate and needy, and you're the guy who asks everyone out in the office. And then, of course, strike 3. 3 strikes and you're out. This is why you cannot afford to run numbers game in a warm environment. And of course, yeah, I've made these numbers up, but the point is still the same and you get the idea. No girl wants to date a guy who hits on everyone and constantly gets rejected. And in fact, anything after 2 or 3 failed approaches will lead to you being labelled as nothing else but that one creep who hits on every girl. You don't want to end up in this place.
You don't want to be this guy. You don't want people to think that you're this guy who just goes around asking everyone out, right? So really, you can't just, run the numbers game in a warm environment, like asking out 50 girls at your workplace. That's just not a good idea. But then again, if you ask out just a few women, because such a small portion of women find you attractive, it's unlikely that you'll get success. So if you ask out just 5 women, it's just not going to be very likely that one of them is going to say yes. And the reputation damage from running the numbers game is especially bad if you do it in the workplace. And like a woman reports you to HR for being a creep or for harassing her. Like, you are going to get fired, bro. Keep in mind, if your job is really competitive, and like the job market is really competitive these days, so there's guys lining up to get your position. If you get in trouble of any kind, there's no reason why they should give you a second chance, because they have other guys who could take your spot just like that. Now the second drawback is that it's quickly exhaustible. Warm approach is actually limited in the scope and the size. So you don't really have many tries until your warm approach strategy essentially turns into a cold approach. Okay, and what I mean by this is that if let's just say that you're like a 4 out of 10, you're like a sub 5, and you don't have very many female friends, and you have no female friends at all. Let's just say that you have like 3 female friends. Okay, do you really think that you'll get a girlfriend if you just ask out all 3 of your female friends? Right, like we said in the numbers game part, it's just not going to be enough. If you ask out all the females in your social circle, at this point, all you can do is now cool approach or cold approach in real life, because there's just nothing left in your social circle. You have just exhausted your options. If you're a sub 5, you can probably count the number of true warm approaches you have on one hand. That's just not going to be enough volume. So you will exhaust your warm approach method and you're going to have to move on to cold approach or online dating. Warm approach is also unavailable to many men, especially men who don't have a warm environment, and men who don't have a social circle in their warm environment that has women in it. Guys who are not in school or work, or they're in male-dominated workplaces, they often have no warm approaches to use. And if you're NEET, which means you're not in education, employment, or training, you don't have a warm environment. And yeah, if you're a rotter or a basement dweller, you might not even have any social circle in real life, which means that warm approach literally does not exist for you. So warm approach is just not an option for you. And the last drawback of warm approach is that it depends heavily on your pre-existing social status. If you're a guy who has high social status, just your local status, like if you're popular at school, if you're known for being a charismatic and fun guy, this will work to your advantage, and warm approach is going to be extremely effective, as opposed to cold approach, where the women who you're approaching, they don't know that you're that guy. But if you have a negative social status in your local environment, like if you are known for being a nerd, or people think you're a dork or a loser, or you're a jester. You're a jester if you have jester maxed in the past. And jester maxing is when you try to be funny on purpose to get people to like you. Oftentimes, it just makes you less respected, and you're turning yourself into a joke. So if you have jester maxed, you've made the mistake of jester maxing, then that would actually negatively impact your warm approach, because people aren't going to think highly of you. And especially combined with the reputation damage aspect. The last thing you want to do is to decrease your reputation even further and make yourself a potential target of humiliation by just approaching a bunch of girls. So like this applies if you're in high school. If people are bullying you, you don't want to get bullied even more by just asking out like 50 girls. This is just going to destroy your social life. Now that we've gotten the warm approach drawbacks out of the way, Let's look at the first reason. If women who find you attractive enough to date are rare, trying to find such a woman is like searching for a needle in a haystack. When you're searching for a needle in a haystack, you're much more likely to find the needle if you look in many spots in the haystack as opposed to a few. Imagine if you just looked in one spot in the haystack and then just gave up. You will probably not find the needle at all. You need to look throughout the whole entire haystack, right? And the faster you can search through the haystack, the sooner you'll find the needle, which means that you need high volume of approaches in order to get success. If you're warm approaching, like we explained in the drawbacks of warm approaching, it's just not a good strategy. You don't want to be approaching 50 women in your workplace. You don't want to be approaching 50 women at the school you go to. And cold approach volume. What about cold approach? Surely you can approach 50 women in the street, right? Well, let's look at what cold approachers actually do. So this article says, once your skill level goes high, you can approach 2 girls per day. At a high skill level, most people would only be approaching 2 girls per day. And it says, the pro coaches can even afford 20 approaches per day because they have nothing to do with their career or other commitments, right? Cold approaching is literally their job if you're a dating coach. But even they just approach 20 per day. And yeah, that is a lot. But compared to online dating, that's actually nothing. There is no more efficient way to run numbers game than use dating apps. So on Tinder, every 12 hours, you get 50 swipes on average for men. It does depend on how many the algorithm gives you, but you get 50 swipes every 12 hours, which is 100 swipes per day. And that is much more than even what the pro coaches are doing when they're cold approaching, and certainly more than warm approaching will get you. And it takes so little time because in less than 1 minute of swiping on Tinder, you pretty much virtually approached several times more women than there even exists in your social circle. So this is just so much more efficient if you're trying to run the numbers game, searching for the needle in a haystack. Let's look at this visual. This is 1 in 100 women. So if you're like unattractive, let's say that 1 in 100 women find you attractive. Now imagine how long that would take. That would take ages if you're searching through your social circle, if you're warm approaching. If you approach like just 20 women, you're probably not going to find this one out of 100, right? But imagine how much better it would be. And of course, yeah, she has to like not already be in a relationship. So it's more like 1 in like 200 if 1 in 100 find you attractive. But imagine if you could search through this entire city all at once with a computer algorithm. And that's what online dating apps allows you to do. It is just so much more efficient to find that needle in a haystack, which is the woman who will find you attractive enough to date. So let's put the numbers into perspective right now, because I'm sure you've seen these Tinder experiments that show Chads or women getting over 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000 matches. Yes, it is true that relative to Chads and women, the number of matches that below average looking guys get on Tinder is just abysmal. You're getting nothing compared to what Chad gets. But if you look at the absolute numbers, even for what a sub-5 male gets, it's unthinkable to have in the pre-digital age. We see these massive numbers in the media and online all the time. But if you really think about it, if you even have like 200 views on your YouTube video, and like that seems like nothing. Oh, 200 views, that's nothing, right? But before the internet, if you were giving a speech and 200 people showed up, that would actually be a big deal. But these days, we're just used to seeing these giant numbers. So I think you need to really put into perspective, like if you have 50 of something or 20 of something, if you're sub 5, when it comes to dating options, that's actually extremely good for a sub 5. So imagine if you're sub 5 and you just get 1 match per week. Might as well not even try, right? A lot of black pillars say that you might as well not even try if you get as low as 1 match per week. However, that's 52 matches in 1 year. So if you're sub 5, do you honestly think you can get 52 different women in real life in the same year finding you good looking enough to date? I don't think you would. If you're sub 5, you will actually have more options in online dating than you will have in the real world. And about Chad's huge match count, matches do have diminishing returns. So I would say that if you have over like 200 matches, it really gives you no real benefits in your dating life. Compare Chad Light with 300 matches versus Chad with 3,000 matches. Or about Giga Chad with 10,000. All of them have more women than they will ever need in their entire lives, on that app. So is it like 10x the dating life? Does Chad have 10 times the dating life of Chad Light? Because above a certain threshold, it really is overkill.
And another point I'd like to make is that Chad might get all the matches, or almost all the matches, but he cannot occupy all of his matches. Because if Chad gets 5,000 matches, you think he actually has time to go through and date all of these women. No, he doesn't. So over some certain big number of matches, it is completely excessive and it doesn't actually help him. Like getting 10,000 matches, it's not helping Chad any more than if he had just like 200 matches, even 100 matches. Chad can't occupy all of the matches he gets. So these women are not completely taken by Chad, right? They're still available to men who are lower down the hierarchy. The second reason that dating apps are a viable method for sub-5 males, might even be the best method for sub-5 males, is the time investment. And this is also about efficiency, just like the first reason. So as I said before, on free Tinder, the average man gets 50 swipes every 12 hours. And the average woman gets closer to 100 swipes, and this is due to the gender ratio on Tinder that has a lot more men than women registered. 50 swipes every 12 hours means that you have 100 swipes or approaches every day. So if you are a slow swiper, if you spend 5 seconds to look at every profile, you spend 8 minutes and 20 seconds swiping on the app every day if you're maxing out your approaches. But if you're a speed swiper and just swipe on every girl, if you spend 1/3 of a second per swipe, you swipe through the entire stack in about 33 seconds. So this takes basically no time. And a point that Wheat Waffles brought up about these speed swipers is that the Tinder algorithm could shadow ban you if you just swipe right on every girl. So then I would recommend maybe you should swipe left on every third girl or every fourth girl or every second girl. Just don't swipe right on every girl, but it doesn't mean that you have to swipe super slow. And even if you take 5 seconds to look at every profile, it will only take you 8 minutes and 20 seconds. If you accumulate this much volume in in-person approaches, whether it be warm or cold, it would take multiple orders of magnitude of more time. Imagine just how long it would take. It would take hours spread out over several days or even weeks to approach 100 women in cold approach. It would take ages, but you can do this in under 9 minutes on Tinder. If you swipe really fast, you can do it in under 1 minute. If you only use dating apps when you're waiting for the train or a bus or waiting in line, sitting on the toilet, so if you're only using dating apps when you're doing these things, right, you practically waste 0 time in your life because you don't have to spend any additional time using dating apps. That is 0 time investment. And additionally, the real approaching is done automatically by the algorithm. So it's passive. And what I mean by this is that when you swipe on Tinder, that is not the actual approach, because the algorithm behind the scenes passively, when you're not using the app, it's showing your profile to women who are nearby. So that is the actual approaching. So you're actually approaching without spending any time because the algorithm is doing it for you. And people who swipe right on you, people who liked you, they're more likely to show up earlier in your stack on Tinder. So that actually saves you time. So if a girl has already swiped right on you, it's likely that you're going to get to her in like 2 or 3 swipes rather than having to swipe the entire 100 to get to her. So because of this, the opportunity cost of using dating apps is pretty much 0. Because with cold approach, it will you have to take hours out of your day. Warm approach, there are also other things that you could be doing rather than like warm approaching. But if you're using dating apps, it uses basically no time. And any time that it does take, you could just play like 5 minutes less of video games every day. It really does not take anything out of your life to use dating apps. This criticism of online dating apps that is thrown around so commonly on black pill forums and on YouTube, saying it's a tremendous waste of time. How is it a waste of time? Just comparing it to the time that you would waste using literally any other method. This is the most time efficient way. Reason number 3 is financial cost. And you might think this is weird, like, oh, warm approach, cold approach, shouldn't they be free? Dating apps are the ones that actually cost money. Well, of course, we know that the base cost of using dating apps, provided you already have a phone, is free. There is premium, and of course, I will actually get into that later. Warm approaches are free, but if you don't have a warm environment already, it is absolutely not free. Getting into a warm environment may cost money. Like right now, if you're not in a university and you're in like a male-dominated job, it's going to cost money to enroll in university or community college. And cold approaching is usually not free. We're going to get into that in the next slide. Yeah, unless you're just running game at the grocery store, bus stop. But then again, how many women do you actually want to cold approach at the grocery store? And you don't even go to the grocery store that often. Like you go to the grocery store once per week and there's like 2 women there who you want to approach. It would, again, take you ages to find the needle in the haystack. This is just a poor strategy, low volume. So if you really want to actually go cold approach, you would have to really like actually dedicate time in your life to do it. So let's look at what that would entail. We're making a chart here. We're going to compare the price of Tinder Gold versus the price of cold approach. So 6 months of Tinder Gold. According to this chart, you can see the prices of all the Tinder premiums here. 6 months of Tinder Gold price per month is $12.50. This is for the US. And let's say that you cold approach, but you don't like live, unless you like live directly on the Las Vegas Strip or you live in Miami or something. you're going to have to actually travel to a place that has enough women walking around for you to cold approach, right? It's not going to be like right next to you. So let's say that you have to go 5 miles, which is approximately 8 kilometers, to get to that place. Now, according to a fuel cost calculator, according to the United States average fuel cost per gallon, this round trip would cost $1.39. But if you go out to cold approach 3 times per week, the monthly fuel cost would be $16.68. So if you just do that 3 times per week, that's already going to be more expensive than Tinder Gold monthly in a monthly cost. But now, if you're doing night game, if you're going to nightclubs and bars, according to my research, the average nightclub entrance fee in the US is about $30 for men. And if let's say that 3 of these outings you're going to do some day game, and 1 of these outings you're doing night game, this means that you're doing $136.68 per month, because you are going out 4 times in that month to the nightclub. So that's $120 of total fees. But if you're going to a bar, again, you're also going to be spending money on buying drinks for women. Like, if you're going to do that, that's going to increase the cost even more. So let's compare that to Tinder Gold. If you get 5 likes per day, just 5 likes per day on Tinder Gold is like very low. You get 150 likes per month. But if you do 10 approaches per outing, again, let's say that you do half of what these pro coaches are doing, you get 120 approaches per month. So that is still less than the Tinder Gold, when you're basically doing nothing. You're just sitting on your couch. You're just lying in your bed, not doing anything. You have to put in all this effort and all this money to cold approach, and it's still fewer approaches. And your cost per like on Tinder Gold is just 8 cents. Whereas in cold approach, if you're just doing day game, just approaching women on the street, it's about 14 cents. And if you're doing day and night game, it's over $1 per approach. The 4th reason why dating apps are a good idea to use if you're sub 5 especially is the dead end encounters, and this happens a lot to sub 5s. So what is a dead end encounter? Well, essentially a dead end encounter is when you waste your time approaching a woman when you never had a chance with her in the first place. So an example of this is that you're just below her minimum looks or height threshold. So let's say that you're 5'5", and a woman wants to date women who are at least 5'10". If you approach her, even if you have the best game, she's just going to reject you because you're just too short. And depending on your approach strategy, you might have like a long conversation with her that lasts like five minutes before you ask her for her number or something, and she just says no. So you just wasted 5 minutes of your life approaching this woman who you had 0 chance with, no matter how good your social skills or your charisma is. Second reason is that she's already in a relationship. So she might already have a boyfriend. And if she doesn't want to cheat on her boyfriend, then of course you have 0 chance. There's just 0 chance that you will get a relationship with her. In dating apps, completely solves this problem because there's no dead end encounters. If a woman swipes right on you on a dating app, that means that you must have met her looks threshold, unless she's just one of those like users who just swipes right on everyone. But that's a lot more rare in women than it is for men. So she's only gonna, if you match with her, that means you met her looks threshold. So you're not wasting your time by talking to her. And everyone on a dating app is looking for a relationship. So this second point here, second example, is just completely never going to happen. You only communicate with the people who swipe right on you. So you have a chance, at least theoretically, you have a chance with every woman who you message on a dating app. And yeah, in practice, she might ignore or not see your message, but you sent just one message as an opener, and you only wasted seconds of time. Comparing that to if you're cold approaching or warm approaching, you might have a 15-minute conversation in a warm approach, and then you ask her out and she says, I have a boyfriend. You don't waste any time on a dating app, but you will waste your time if you're cold approaching or warm approaching in real life. And the dating app Bumble eliminates dead end encounters by design, because on Bumble, women have to message you first. So like men can't message women first on Bumble. So think about it. If a woman messages you first, then she's already interested. So if you use Bumble, you will literally waste 0 time talking to women who you don't actually have a chance with. And cold approach destinations like nightclubs and bars, these are the most dead-end maxed places for sub-5s. So think about the type of women who go to these environments. Like if you're a sub-5 male, let's say that you look, that you have like a nerdy appearance and you're like a 4 out of 10 in the face. These women are the women who are going to want that tall Chad the most. And you might actually have a chance with like Sarah at the library, but you're not going to find her at a club. But it's not actually unlikely that she is on a dating app. she might be using Bumble or Hinge. So dating apps, you're more likely to get the type of woman who's actually more likely to like you. Whereas if you're like a sub-5 male, or you're like a nerd-looking guy, you go to these nightclubs, bro, you just don't have a chance with the type of women who are going to these places. And if this Sarah at the library type of girl exists in your social circle, then that's great for you. You can warm approach her if she's single. But if she doesn't exist in your social circle, then you probably wouldn't want to go to a club or a bar or a cold approach destination to try to find a girl that is this type. You would rather use a dating app like Bumble or Hinge or even Tinder. On there, you'd be more likely to find this type of girl than at a cold approach spot. Now, let's look at the dead-end encounters. Let's classify this. This is pertaining to cold approach. So, like some guys might try to lessen their dead-end encounters by approaching in a direct manner. Like they're approaching more upfront, showing their intentions very clearly, and making like innuendos. So then if they will get rejected right away and not waste any time if the woman is not interested. Or you might approach in an indirect manner and just like try to have like a normal conversation with a woman, not really showing that you know your actual motives for talking to her when you're cold approaching. So yeah, the direct is going to have less time wasted for dead-end encounters because you will get rejected immediately if the woman is not interested in you. And if you're approaching in an indirect manner, then you might waste more time having a long conversation only to find out that you never had a chance at the end. But I'm going to explain this later in reason number 7, but you do have a danger to yourself component here, because if you approach in a direct manner, especially if you're a sub-5 male, and in my opinion, sub-5 males should not be cold approaching, but let's say that you're sub-5 and you're approaching, the more direct you're making it, the more likely you are to get in trouble with the police, and the more likely you are to get like slapped in the face by the woman you're approaching. If you get indirect manner, of course, it's going to be less dangerous to yourself. So that is something that you might want to consider, and I'm going to talk about it in reason number 7. Reason number 5, this is a major reason. Another way to train your social skills. So what do I really mean by this? Because a lot of guys say that dating apps are not good for training your social skills. And if you want to practice your social skills, you should only interact in real life, like in person. And I actually don't agree with that. I think you should do both. And we're going to look at the athlete analogy. So think about like what professional athletes do. Do they just play the sport that they play? No, they don't. Like professional boxers and professional MMA fighters. Do they spend all their training time just fighting in the ring? No, they don't. They also lift weights. So professional sports players, athletes, they use training methods that are not just the thing that they're trying to get better at. So like soccer players and football players, they don't just play the sport that they play. So now let's split your social skills into your content, which is what you say, and your delivery, which is how you say it. So just like an athlete might be a tennis player, they might be really good at hitting the ball, but they might be really bad at like running. So they might do some running drills because they're like different components to the athletics that are required for the sport. Right? So let's say that you are good at delivery, but you're very bad at content, which means that you can like talk to women in a confident voice. You can be like assertive, but you just say the dumbest things. It's just the stupidest words come out of your mouth. If you want to train your content, you can message on a dating app, and this is going to give you practice with just the content when the delivery is not so important because, you know, your tone of voice doesn't really matter because you're typing. So yeah, you can take the time to think about what to say and how the recipient will perceive it to get better at this. And over time, you could get faster and faster, taking less time to think about it and apply that to in real life. So yeah, there's no pressure like in real life when you have to respond within 1 or 2 seconds. So if you find that you can say better things if you take more time to think, then dating apps or messaging in a dating app is actually good practice for that. It's also useful for building confidence if you get too nervous in interactions in real life. So if you get too nervous, it doesn't even matter if you have the best content because your delivery is just bad. So if you're good at get good at saying the right lines electronically, making you more confident in your abilities, then in real life, you'll know what to say and you'll just need to focus on honing your delivery. So it's like you're isolating a certain aspect of your skill set and it's like you're training your weak points. Online dating is also really useful for learning from your mistakes because you can look back on your previous text conversations and figure out exactly what you did wrong and how you could have done better. You can show your text conversations to your friends or post screenshots on forums to receive feedback on your texting skills. But when it comes to in person, you can't really do that. You have to either have someone trying to listen in, or you have to just remember what you said and then tell your friends about it and ask them for feedback, or you have to get someone to like literally record you approaching the girl, which is called recording an infield in the PUA community. But first of all, you can't do that on private property. And again, if you get caught filming, then the cameraman's social reputation will get ruined. So you're just putting your friend's reputation on the line if you try to get your friend to just like stand in the corner recording you when you're approaching a woman. And obviously you would never want to do this in a warm environment. Just imagine getting someone to record you asking out your crush at school. If you get caught, your reputation is just going to go down the drain. You don't want to get caught recording, especially in a warm environment. Yeah, and of course, there's privacy risk with posting these infields online. Yeah, you can blur the faces, but there's still privacy risks. So you wouldn't want to post your infields on forums to receive feedback. But it is a lot safer to post screenshots of your text on forums to receive feedback for your game. Reason number 6 is rejections and the emotional and mental health effects of these brutal rejections. The sub-5 males get rejected mostly for being physically unattractive. Let's be real here. This is the reality, okay? Example, if you're a 4 out of 10 guy, in probably under 10% of your approaches does your behavior, your money, or your status ever matter at all. In over 90% of your approaches, you're rejected for your looks. And your behavior literally would not help you succeed in those approaches. There is a small minority, like less than 10% of your approaches, where you do have a chance if you have your like best behavior and your best status, your best game, your best charisma. But in most of your approaches, you're rejected for your looks. So yeah, suffering through these massive amounts of rejections, especially for your looks, it's literally just unnecessary. And some people, they might say, oh, rejections help you learn from your mistakes. But that has to do with just less than 10% of your approaches. So your game could have helped you in less than 10% of your approaches. And in most of your approaches, you get rejected for your looks. And getting rejected for your looks over and over and over, it is literally just unnecessary pain. It does not help you learn from your mistakes because you could have never even succeeded in these particular approaches. And because dating apps put your looks filter as first and foremost, you pass the looks threshold of every girl whom you match with. A lot of people say that it's a bad thing that dating apps put the looks filter first. And yeah, it might make you have a lot lower success rate when it comes to the first step because you first have to pass the looks threshold. But you do understand that after that, when you actually are messaging and talking to these women, you are not going to get rejected for your looks because you already passed the looks threshold. And these looks rejections, you literally do not see. In dating apps, you don't face the brutality of the rejections. Even if 99% of women swipe left on your profile, which is actually pretty realistic, you don't see any of it, right? So 99% of the women reject you, but you do not feel the pain of the rejection because all they're doing is swiping left on your profile.
If you have a Tinder account, women might be rejecting you right now as you're watching this video because the Tinder algorithm shows your profile to women in the background when you're off the app. You might be getting rejected when you're sleeping. Yes, women are rejecting you when you're sleeping in your bed, bro. When in your dreams, women are rejecting you. But that doesn't affect you a bit. Unlike rejections in real life, which affect you directly. Okay, I know a lot of guys in the cold approach community will say, you just need to get more mentally tough. You just need to get more resilient to rejection. And while resilience to rejection is a good thing, I don't think it's productive to, for example, increase your pain tolerance by stubbing your toe 100 times or paper cutting yourself 100 times. You know what I mean? It's easier said than done to just go out there and get rejected and not care. If we're being realistic, rejections do impact a lot of guys' mental health, and a lot of guys quit approaching in person, and they get really like dejected and sad because of how the rejections have added up and affected their mental health after accumulating over and over and over. We have a method called online dating apps where that doesn't happen. The Tinder algorithm can give your profile 100,000 views, and 99,999 women can reject you, and you will not feel a thing. The only thing that you're going to get is just one match. In real life, every one of these rejections is like a punch to your face. But in online dating, the rejections, you feel pretty much nothing. And yes, it is true that if you look at these stats, women swipe left on 95% of men. And a lot of black pillars look at this and they go like, oh, the game is rigged. Yeah, it is rigged, but it's 95%.
you do not actually experience that rejection directly to your face. In dating apps, you only actually interact with this 5% of women who swipe right on you. Reason number 7 is safety. Why do I have these surgeons here and this security guard here? Well, this security guard represents you getting in danger of ending up in a jail cell. Okay, so you won't just be in cell, you will be in a cell. And here it represents your risk of getting in physical danger. So first, let's look at the legal danger. Now, if you're unattractive, especially if you're like creepy looking or you look like an ogre, you have this ogreish appearance. If you cold approach a lot, it's not unlikely that you'll get in trouble with the law. It's not unlikely that a woman's going to call the cops on you eventually. Cold approaching for a year, approaching 20 women a day, it's not unlikely that at least one of them is going to call security or call the police on you. Compare this situation to online dating apps. Because you only meet up with a girl, you have to agree to meet up with her, obviously. Like, so that means she's already interested in you, and you've already built up rapport from having a conversation over text. So it is extremely unlikely that she's going to then accuse you of harassment or anything like that. But in real life, if you're just cold approaching random strangers on the street, this is a real possibility. And if you cold approach in university as a sub-5 male, this might put your education on the line, because if you get reported, you could get expelled from your university. It does depend on university, but in university, it probably isn't going to matter even if they have no proof that you did it, because they don't want students on their campus that's going to be making other people feel unsafe. Even if you didn't actually break the law or do anything wrong, you might still see your education being taken away from you. So the second reason is a person when it comes to your physical safety. Now, this have to do with nightclub approaching and night game. So if you're in a manlet, it's a short male. So if you're a short guy, let's say that you're like 5'4", it is not exactly the safest environment for you to be in physically. Okay, these are crowded areas filled with intoxicated and aggressive men, many of whom are over 6 feet. So imagine if you're like 5'4" and you get into a fight with a 6'6" guy, you're not going to be able to defend yourself. It is over for you at this point. Okay, you're going to see yourself here or in a graveyard. If you're in a club and you're really ugly and a woman's just like creeped out by your looks, or you accidentally say the wrong thing. And let's be honest, like most guys, especially if they're just starting out, they're going to accidentally say the wrong thing. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to slip up when they're speaking, right? And all it takes is for a woman in the club to scream, "Get away from me, creep," right? If she screams that and the other guys who are drunk in the club hear it, well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to start coming at you, bro. They're going to try to beat you up, and you might possibly lose your life. Like, think about it, bro. You're in a crowded area. You have nowhere to run, and you're 5'4", and some 6'4" guy is trying to beat you up, bro. You just don't have a chance to defend yourself. Reason number 8 is showing, not telling, your personality, your lifestyle, your status, and all of these related factors. So what do I mean by this? Showing and not telling, it's about the looks of your personality. So what does this mean? Well, your personality, it has an effect, okay? But the looks of your personality is underrated. It's really, really important. So what do I mean by the looks of your personality? Well, on your online dating profile, you have photos that show some components of your personality. For example, if you have a guy standing in front of a Lamborghini, that shows that he has high status and he's living a high profile lifestyle. But compare how effective that would be to like just telling a girl that you have a Lamborghini. Like, what's going to have a bigger impact on her? Seeing a photo of you that actually displays your personality visually, or you just telling her like, "Oh, I do this. I like this." Right? The looks of your personality is going to have a lot more impact than like what you say your personality is. It's visual over verbal here. Here's an example of how online dating would be the most beneficial method for a man. So let's take, for example, this guy named Joe. He's 5'8", and a lot of women in his social circle think that he is too short because they're interested in men who are 6 feet or taller. But he goes to a lot of parties. But since he's not a super popular party guy, it's not like his reputation was spread through word of mouth to the women in his social circle, telling them that he's that party guy. So the women in his social circle, they don't know that he's that party guy. So if he were to just tell these women that he goes to lots of parties, do you think that would be positively received? Like, if you just walk up to a girl who you know, you're not really close friends with her, but you just tell her, yeah, by the way, I party a whole lot. Like, that's not really going to have a very good effect on her. But imagine on a dating app, if a photo on his profile shows him at a party having a great time, then as soon as a woman on a dating app sees that picture, she's going to think, oh, he's such a charismatic, outgoing party guy, right? So she might actually make an exception for him being below her height standard. But in real life, unless you are really popular and like other people are vouching for you, you can't really just tell people that your life is good. They have to actually see that your life is good for that to help you. So the parts of your personality, other than your social skills and your speaking style, it literally does not matter in cold approach. In online dating, you get to show your hobbies, your interests, and your lifestyle to the women on the app, right? But when you cold approach, like who is cold approaching and immediately starting talking about their hobbies? Like who cold approaches and goes like, oh, I produce music. Like no one is doing that, right? So when you're cold approaching, these aspects of your personality and your lifestyle and your status, it literally does not matter. And people think personality will matter more in cold approach than online dating. No, in online dating, personality matters more than in cold approach. And when it comes to warm approach, if the women in your social circle don't know you well, online dating may actually show women more of your personality and lifestyle than warm approach does. If the women don't know your hobbies and your interests and everything, but online dating, you will actually be able to use this. So in some situations, your personality actually makes more of a difference online than when you're warm approaching. Because when you warm approach, the women just, they can't see the things that you actually like. They can't see these aspects about your personality and the lifestyle that they don't see. But they can see that in your photos online. This means that you can show your high status and your money if you have these in your photos without leading with your wallet. So if you're warm approaching or cold approaching, a woman might not know that you're rich or your high status unless you tell them. And if you do that, then you're just leading with your wallet and you're going to be attracting gold diggers. Or they might not even like you because they might think you're arrogant for just like saying that you're rich. But if you just show a picture of you standing in front of a Lamborghini in your online dating profile, they're not going to assume that you're just some like arrogant guy who just brags about being rich, right? So, yeah, you can also do this indirectly with warm approach, but it's not like you're going to just be walking around your school in a suit all day. You're not going to just be wearing a suit every time you go out in cold approach or like a Rolex watch all the time, right? So your online dating profile, you can really show off your high status and your money without coming across as you're leading with your wallet, which is not a good idea in general. Reason number 9 is photo editing. In online dating apps, you can edit your dating profile pictures. You can't edit your face in real life without surgery. Okay, the vast majority of men don't do this. Okay, so this is never going to go mainstream. So as long as you're editing your profile pictures on dating apps, you're going to have an advantage compared to the men, the majority, the 99% of men who are never going to edit their pictures, right? And if you're as a looks-pilled, black-pilled guy, you're going to be able to gain a slight advantage by doing these minor edits and morphs. But you don't want to make them too drastic because then you're catfishing. But you can just make like minor improvements, right? And the last reason number 10, is what I call playing the game as it is, not as you want it to be. So, this Wheat Waffles video, I do agree with a lot of most of the points that he made in this video. These 3 platforms have single-handedly destroyed dating for men, is the title. Do I agree that it has destroyed dating? For the most part, yes. They have made dating for men a lot harder. It has just caused it like an increase in promiscuity. It's basically the impact that dating apps have had on society. In my opinion, it is bad. I agree with Wheat Waffles here, but the damage has already been done. Dating apps are here to stay. So by you avoiding dating apps, it's not making the world a better place. It doesn't mean that you're going to avoid the damage that has been done, by the dating apps and the social media. We live in a world in which dating apps play a huge role in the dating game. Okay, dating apps are very popular. They have millions of users, okay? And yeah, it can be a feasible method for you to use. It may even be better than the other methods that you have. So just avoiding it does not change the fact that this is the state of the game that we play. And also the social harm that happens because of dating apps. It happens because of the women and the attractive chads being on the dating apps, right? So you've heard like, oh, on dating apps, 80% of the women are going for the top 20% of men. If you're a bottom 20% man and you're using a dating app, you're not actually causing any harm to society, because it is just the women and the chads that are actually causing the inequality increases on these dating apps. So you're not making any difference if you're sub 5. And if it makes any difference, it will actually cause fewer women to use dating apps. Because think about it, if more sub 5s get on dating apps, this would cause women to leave dating apps because their feeds would be inundated by sub 5s. So it would actually cause them to leave the dating apps.
This graph shows the exponential rise of online dating and how couples meeting online is now close to or already has become the dominant method of couples meeting in the year 2023. So this just shows how the dating market has changed because of online dating and how dominant online dating is. So with the majority of couples meeting in online dating these days, why wouldn't you be on online dating if you're trying to really max out your chances, especially if you're a sub 5 and you need to get all the chances that you can get?
Let's go over the 10 reasons. The first, needle in a haystack, right? It's a numbers game. If you're approaching very few women like you would in a warm approach, it would just not work. And there's just no more efficient method than online dating to maximize the numbers game, to find the needle in the haystack. Number 2, dating apps require little to no time investment, literal minutes per day, or even less than 1 minute per day, depending on how quickly you swipe. Dating apps require no monetary investment, or if you're going to do premium, it is still relatively cheap compared to night game, especially if you're going out to clubs and bars. They all cost a lot more money than dating apps will per month. Dating apps eliminate dead-end encounters. Okay, you're on dating apps, since every woman is looking for not necessarily a relationship, but something. You're not going to waste time talking to women who are already in relationships. They're already taken. You're not going to waste time talking to women whose looks thresholds you don't meet, because then they would not have swiped on you in the first place. Dating apps can be used as a training method, to bring up lagging elements in your social skills repertoire and let you get feedback to learn from your mistakes a lot easier than other methods allow. Dating apps save you the burden of having to endure countless rejections to your face. You're not getting rejected by women whose looks thresholds you don't meet. That is completely unnecessary. And even if I think it's not necessary to go through rejection when you don't have to. But even if you're one of those guys who think, oh, bro, it makes you tougher to go through rejections, wouldn't you rather go through rejections because you have actually made mistakes in your speech and in your game, rather than just being rejected for your looks, which is what's going to happen most of the time in cold approach if you're sub 5. Using dating apps rather than approaching in real life has much lower risks with the police and your physical safety. Number 8, dating apps let you showcase the best parts of your lifestyle and your personality straight from the beginning. So you're not waiting, you don't have to wait until the third date. If you don't get your third date, it's not you're not going to be able to show very much of your personality to the girl, right? If she never even agrees to go on a date with you. But in the dating app, you get to show the aspects of your personality visually, which has a much bigger impact than even just talking about it verbally. Photo editing, morphing. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, online is the only place that you can. 10, you just have to deal with how the dating game works in 2023, adapt or perish. So we live in a online dating game. That's the state of the market, guys. If you don't want to do it, you are just missing out on what is the method that is the most dominant in 2023. So that's it for the video. And remember, if you are sub 5, please subscribe.